The first sign was a scratching sound. It came from the walls of Rudra's new apartment, a cozy one-bedroom in the heart of New York City. He dismissed it as mice.
Just city things. But the sounds persisted, growing more frequent and bizarre. There were soft thuds like objects being dragged across the floor above. Sometimes, late at night, he could have sworn he heard muffled whispers. The whispers seemed to be coming from the very walls themselves.
Rudra, new to the city and eager to make it his own, tried to ignore the strange symphony his apartment seemed determined to play. He told himself it was just the building settling. Old buildings, he reasoned, were full of creaks and groans. But deep down, a seed of unease began to take root in his mind. One evening, while preparing dinner, a particularly loud thump startled Rudra. He dropped his spatula on the floor. It clattered against the tiles, the sound echoing in the sudden silence that followed. He stood frozen, listening intently. The silence held, thick and heavy. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding.
It's just your imagination, Rudra, but the uneasy feeling in his gut refused to be ignored.
The strange noises were unsettling enough, but soon, things took a turn for the worse. Rudra started noticing that his belongings were disappearing. At first, they were small things, a sock here, a teaspoon there, things he could explain away as simply misplaced. But then, more significant items started vanishing. His favorite Swiss Army knife, a gift from his father, went missing. He searched high and low, but it was gone. He called his friend Atul, his confidant in all things strange and unusual.
Atul, you won't believe what's happening. My stuff is disappearing.
You're just stressed out from the move. Give it time, you'll find your things.
But Rudra couldn't shake the feeling something was amiss. The disappearances continued. His antique compass, a treasured possession from his grandfather, vanished without a trace. The last of his patience snapped when he discovered his bottle of expensive scotch was half empty, even though he could have sworn he had just opened it.
Alright, this is officially weird. He decided to take matters into his own hands. He bought a cheap surveillance camera and set it up in his living room, hoping to catch the culprit.
The next day, Rudra eagerly checked the footage, but the camera had captured nothing unusual. Just the empty living room bathed in the pale light of day. He was about to dismiss it all as his overactive imagination when he noticed something odd. There was a slight distortion in the video, a subtle ripple in the air, right in front of the living room wall. He called Atul, his voice tight with a mixture of fear and excitement.
I told you something strange was happening.
It's probably just a glitch in the camera, man. Don't get your knickers in a twist.
But Rudra couldn't ignore the feeling that he was onto something. Armed with a stud finder and a growing sense of unease, he began tapping the walls of his apartment, hoping to find a hollow space. He started with the wall where he had seen the distortion in the video. He moved the stud finder slowly, listening for the telltale beep that would indicate a gap behind the drywall. Silence. He moved it lower, his heart pounding with a strange mix of dread and anticipation. And then, he heard it. A faint, high-pitched beep. The faint beep of the stud finder echoed in the silence of the apartment, sending a shiver down Rudra's spine. He pressed his ear against the wall, listening intently. Silence. He tapped the wall lightly with his knuckles. It sounded hollow. He knocked again, harder this time. The sound echoed back, deeper and more resonant than it should have been. He stepped back, his mind racing. There was definitely something behind the wall. He had to see for himself. He fetched a hammer and chisel from his toolbox. Hesitantly at first, he began to chip away at the drywall. Dust filled the air, making him cough. He paused, glancing back at the surveillance camera he had set up. It was still running, recording everything. With each swing of the hammer, the hole in the wall grew larger, revealing a glimpse of darkness beyond. Rudra stood frozen, staring at the opening in his living room wall. A musty smell wafted from the darkness, tickling his nostrils.
He grabbed a flashlight from his toolbox and shone it into the opening. The light cut through the darkness, revealing a narrow passageway.
The walls were rough, made of bare brick, and the floor was covered in dust. He took a deep breath and stepped through the opening, feeling a thrill course through him. The passage was cramped, barely wide enough for him to fit through.
He felt a sense of claustrophobia closing in on him, but he pressed on, drawn by an unknown force. As he moved deeper into the passage, the air grew colder and more oppressive. He could hear the faint sound of dripping water, and he realized that the passage was slightly downhill. He imagined himself trapped in this dark, forgotten place, and he felt a surge of panic. He was about to turn back when he noticed something ahead. A faint light flickered in the distance.
He picked up his pace, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. As he drew closer, the light grew stronger, revealing a wooden door at the end of the passage. Rudra stood before the wooden door, his hand hovering over the tarnished brass knob. He took a deep breath and pushed the door open. It creaked open, revealing a small, dusty room. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and something else, something unfamiliar. The room was sparsely furnished, with a cot, a rickety table, and a single chair. A kerosene lamp flickered on the table, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. A chill ran down Rudra's spine. Someone had been living here. He stepped inside cautiously, his eyes scanning the room. There were books stacked on the floor, their pages yellowed with age. A chipped mug sat on the table, half filled with a murky liquid.
He put the mug down, his stomach churning. Who would live in this secret room hidden behind the walls of his apartment, and why?
He had to find out. He started searching the room, looking for any clue to the occupant's identity. Rudra's search of the secret room yielded few clues. He found a tattered birth certificate tucked away in one of the books. The name on the certificate was barely legible, but he could make out the name Bartholomew, and a date that suggested the man would be well over 100 years old. He found a collection of strange trinkets, a tarnished silver locket, a small, intricately carved wooden box, and a worn leather-bound journal. He opened the journal hoping to find some answers, but the pages were filled with cryptic symbols and diagrams he couldn't decipher.
As he was examining the journal, he heard a noise coming from the passageway. He froze, his heart pounding in his chest. Someone was coming. He quickly extinguished the kerosene lamp, plunging the room into darkness.
A figure emerged from the passageway, silhouetted against the faint light coming from Rudra's apartment. It was a man, elderly and frail, with a shock of white hair and piercing blue eyes. The elderly man, Bartholomew, was startled to find Rudra in his secret room. He explained he had been living in the walls of the building for decades, unnoticed and undisturbed. Bartholomew, a former stage magician, had designed the hidden passages and rooms as part of an elaborate escape act. Over time, he had grown accustomed to his secluded lifestyle, and had continued to live in the walls long after his performing days were over. He assured Rudra he meant no harm.
Rudra, initially apprehensive, found himself drawn to Bartholomew's eccentric charm and captivating stories of his past. They formed an unlikely bond, sharing meals and conversations in Bartholomew's secret room. Rudra learned about Bartholomew's life, his loves, and his losses.
He discovered that Bartholomew wasn't a thief, but a lonely old man yearning for connection. They started spending their evenings together, playing chess by the flickering light of the kerosene lamp and sharing stories.
And so, Rudra continued to live in his apartment, 4B, sharing his life and his home with the man who lived in the walls.
Rudra decided to keep Bartholomew's secret. He helped him retrieve some of his belongings from a storage locker, making Bartholomew's hidden room more comfortable. He even brought him a chess clock, much to Bartholomew's delight.
Atul, initially skeptical of Rudra's tales of a centenarian magician living in the walls, eventually met Bartholomew. He was, needless to say, astonished. He too came to enjoy Bartholomew's company, and the three of them formed an unlikely friendship.
Life took on a new rhythm for Rudra. He continued to live in his apartment, but it no longer felt empty or strange. He shared his space with a secret, a hidden history, and an extraordinary friend. The scratching sounds in the walls were no longer a source of fear, but a reminder of the magic and mystery hidden in the most unexpected places.
It was their secret, a testament to the enduring power of friendship and the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary.